Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah.
Like he's like basically running the whip this week. Jin's like, wait, did you say you were gonna drop the cars in there? I was like, oh shit, man, sorry, I'll get those in there.
Dude, I've been watching that channel. I'm just like, it's so fucking cool. Like just thinking back in the day, like it was just us, and now it's like, damn, like these are legit fucking builders. Jin's talking about backing up years of Hyperfi already, like. Telling us what to do. We're like, oh shit, my bad. Let's get those cars in there.
Dude, did you see my post with all the builders that I've just been adding to the parcel like upon request? It's like
no. Well, let me check this out.
Oh, yeah, hang on. It's actually pinned, but I can drop a link. And I've added like 3-4 more since then too.
Damn, dude.
Right? I'm like, that's a fucking list, man.
Ogar, Metageist. I mean, all these folks.
Seriously.
Dude. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely crushing it. Bro, so yeah. You have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, man, can't complain. It's like Thanksgiving is like a whirlwind. Like both my kids' birthdays like are around this time as well, and you know they have off school and trying to wrap shit up for like all the stuff that I'm working on and everything. So it's like a whirlwind, man. But it's all good, man. I actually, you know, I had one of these periodic times where I'm able to step away from the computer for like 2-3 days straight, and I feel like every time I've said it many times before, but every time I do something like that, I'm like, this is good, and I need to remember to do this periodically, but like on purpose sometimes, not like forced. But forced is good too.
Yeah, 100%.
What about you, man?
It was awesome. It was nice and chill. We had the family coming over for Christmas, so getting ready for all that and just taking time to decompress for a couple of days, get a preview of what's coming for Christmas, basically. Ate so much, had leftovers for the first time in like a decade, like proper leftovers. So I was pretty stoked on that.
Hell yeah. And now back to it, man. You back in the swing of things at this point. I feel like it's been. I don't know, it's good to be away, man. And every time it's good to be away, it's kind of like refreshing to be back. Like somehow the pile of DMs every morning like isn't like as tedious to get through. It's like, I don't know, circling back with a bunch of friends that I haven't talked to in a few days, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have like an extra reserve of fat to power me through the last sprint at the end of the year, basically.
Dude, filled up the reserve tank.
No, exactly, man. Seriously. And then was looking forward to this week coming back. First of all, for Whips Given at the Whip, and what we were just talking about, folks will see like a literal parade and folks giving thanks for all the good shit happening in the metaverse, like trying to add some positivity to the space and in a non-shilly way, rewarding folks and all that good stuff. But also Panther Cheetah, like one of my favorite artists, has a collection, the follow-up collection to last year's A History of Crypto Art. This year's same name, Second Wave, featuring a lot of artists that may have not been included in the first wave, but were a part of it, and the projects like the Whip too, being featured in a really, really cool, beautiful way that kind of adds just amazing perspective to this kind of growing space that a lot of people just, we feel it, but we can't visualize it. And it's a beautiful collection. There are no avocados in there. I know that was a point of contention in the Twitterverse yesterday. Folks calling it out. But it's cool to be a part of it. And yeah, excited to see what happens here. And hopefully a lot of folks collect a little bit of this history and get excited by it. But yeah, very
Dude, I like the just sort of like the community meta art that I feel like has always been there. Like, but I feel like it's been fun for me personally to get in the mix. You know, I've been like fighting with Skeeny and like, and Max Osiris just like entered the fray with like space lasagna shit. And like, I like it, man. Not just the stuff that I'm in, but I like the community making art about itself. And I feel like, we're already starting to see it, right? With like some of these mainstream people coming in and like, sort of spitting false narratives about like the history of the space and like all this stuff. And I'm like, we're always sort of the ones who have like had to have our own backs in order to like represent ourselves and everything that we've built within the space and everything. And I dig it, man. I like that the community, continues to focus on the community and, use art as a way to uplift the community, but have fun with the community at the same time. And I feel like this is how like, we need to be in order to, sort of solidify our place in history, in the history books with all this stuff. And some people don't like, I don't know, I'm probably guilty of maybe putting too much emphasis on that, but or maybe not, man. I just feel like so many people put so much time into like building and creating what this space is today that, Panther Zeta's piece and anyone who's doing stuff like that. Actually, man, Eclectic Method, I can't remember if this was a post or just a conversation I was having with him, but said something to the effect of like, it was on the heels of the Broadside event, right? And he had like, spun the Rizzle Avocado song, and that like got some traction on social media again, which is always fun, obviously, for me. But he was saying something to the effect of like, we need to make songs about ourselves, basically, like about the community and about like cool stuff that's going on and content around that. And I'm paraphrasing, but said something to the effect of like, any DJ can like get up there and spin like top 40 hits, in a interesting way and, sort of get away with that. But, to really like mix it up and sort of turn the spotlight inwards is not something that like a lot of people take the time to do. But I feel like it is like fairly prevalent, in our community. And, you can sort of take that Eclectic Method analogy and expand it, outside of music and everything too. So, I don't know, man, it's just sort of like a random train of thought, but I like all of that sort of vibe. Like, I feel like that's what we've got to do in order to sort of turn this narrative that is inevitably going to, I don't even think it's like ill-intentioned, coming in from the outside. People just don't know what they don't know. And, we got to sort of keep representing ourselves.
1000%. If we don't talk about ourselves, we can't reasonably rely on anyone else to do it for us. And I mean, eclectic artists do it best, I think, too, because it's not just talking about it; it's they're living it as well. And like as rich and beautiful as the like Mexican muralistic inspired work and works plural that Panther created, just her herself being from Argentina, from like literally the bottom of the world, creating this collection that is collected by people on every continent except for Antarctica, right? And having collectors all over the world, like that contextual perspective, in addition to the visual perspective, in addition to everyone then talking about this and making things like that are self-referential, highlighting the best of our space and why so many people are excited about it, it's everything. And it's constantly it's a vein that's rich and deep, and it's not just one artist or two artists can do this and then it's kind of exhausted. Folks can keep doing this over and over. It's I don't know if you call it a genre. It's a type of art that I just love, and I think it speaks to a lot of people, and it runs parallel, I think, to like fan art and fan fiction and things like this that you see pop up. And especially with crypto and AI, you're hearing more and more folks talk about it more, just because there's more tools for more people that may not consider themselves artists to kind of take hold of and create things and experiences and meaning similar to this. So definitely exciting times.
Dude, this is sort of like a side note, but I'm like, are there stats on like people who are collecting or not collecting in Antarctica, like beyond this project? I'm like, I wonder if anyone is, what the adoption rate is in Antarctica and like what the most popular collections are down there, like type of thing. If there are anyone, and if not, man, someone should be the first NFT collected in Antarctica. It seems like a flex. The missing continent.
Gotta hit up my friend Peter the polar bear. Ask him what he's got going on, what he's collecting on the side.
Dude, if no one's collected in Antarctica yet, I'll send him an avocado thing. Like, I'll be the first metaverse avocado in Antarctica.
We should have a geolocation, like GLB, like VR metaverse sculpture down there that people have to go to in order to claim the Rizzo avocado. That feels like the way. That's incentives.
Oh, dude, it'll be like an AR layer at the North Pole or something like that. And you put on your glasses and all these avocados pop up and it'll be like staking your flag on the moon, right? I'm like the first one to stick a avocado AR layer on the North Pole. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You probably don't need to go there to do that. And it's probably already been done, but I can dream.
Yeah. So stoked off of that coming back, and yeah, but what's top of mind for you coming back outside of Epic Whips Given tomorrow?
Dude, it's worth talking about the Epic Whips Given tomorrow, and we were talking before this about the post I had made. Was giving Jin build rights to the parcel to help get set up for it and everything, and just happened to look at the amount of legendary builders who are just have asked to have build rights to our parcel to contribute over the last, I don't know, how long have we had this parcel for, man? What do you think? Like 3-4 months now or something like that? Like not that long.
I would say it hasn't been the full year, but we've been, maybe it's in the 4 to 5 month range, actually.
Something like that. Yeah.
Like beginning of summer. That's what I remember. We started really leaning into it, like you in particular. And we're just like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and it's I added 4 more yesterday for this, and it's just exciting, man. It really we've come back to this like a couple times in the last few podcasts, but it definitely feels like we're building towards something, and not that it had never like felt like that, but I think having the home base has really like crystallized it in a lot of ways, and so that's actually sort of how this float parade came about. This was like Jin's idea. He wanted to do a float parade, and the obvious place to do it was in the whip parcel. We already we got the setup. People are already familiar with coming to the place. We don't need to spin up a whole fresh location. Just add the people who need to get in there. So anyway, he had that idea and we had the Whips Giving idea. And so it seemed obvious to like merge the two and do some sort of like Whips Giving parade. So we were away, right? Like for a real holiday break, at least in the US and everything. And I wasn't really back in the swing of things until yesterday, Tuesday. And obviously the Whips Giving parade is on Thursday. So sort of like, not worried, but like, okay, we need to figure out what the hell is going on here. We've got, a little more than 48 hours to this thing. And I hadn't really heard from Jin either. I hadn't really tried to hear from Jin because I'd sort of been off the radar too. And so I hit up Jin, man, and like, added him to our Whip Build Squad DMs to just sort of help coordinate this thing and everything. And Jin's got this like whole document he wrote up like with all the assets involved, like inspiration, links, backup ideas in case like initial ideas didn't work. And, I was, not to say that we were just going to like slap something together, but, we're sort of used to just sort of running on the fly. Fractillions and I'll get in there, a day ahead of time and put our heads together and throw some things around with the assets we've got. And, she's much better than I am at like spending some time and building a like thing for an event. But anyway, so this is like exceptionally well thought out and organized beyond the scope of probably anything we've done build wise up until this point. Like, we've been doing these custom builds essentially at like a weekly clip, and they've been dope. We've had some like really epic ones, but Jin essentially like brought in his whole squad of builders not his squad, but like a bunch of the people he rolls with. You know, Vox VN is in there now with build rights, and Boombox Head, and there's like I just saw some images in the group chat of like Paradox riding around on Fabiano's hamburger that we're giving away this week. And it looks like there's a crowd of pedestrians in there getting mowed over by this hamburger. And I'm like, dude, this is so fun. and truly like a collaboration of like legends, man. Like when if ever has a group of builders of this caliber collaborated on something. The only thing that really comes to mind is like Architect Island and Voxels, and this parade certainly isn't a scale on that level, but the whip in general is a project at scale. And dude, we got a grip of people like willing to pitch in and help us out, and it's so great, man.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about how we've been doing the whip, and honestly, even with all the extra support, like this is a pretty quick turnaround on the fly, getting folks together. We got a couple days beginning of the week to get something ready for Thursday, right? And it's awesome to see how every week you get something uniquely different. But the ability to have that forcing function of, all right, we got the show Thursday, let's bust out whatever we can do to get there. And how that the work each week kind of compounds. Like we know what to do easier. We know more people and more people can build things in there whenever they want. Like they're added as collaborators, builders. They got build access. They can literally do whatever they want, not necessarily just for an event, but if they have an idea, fucking go run wild with it. Like we are the work in progress. Put your shit in there and we'll show it off. But compared to something like Architects Island, which is awesome, but it is like a huge project, a big endeavor. In this space, I feel it's always best to just move fast. And the quicker you can do something and see how it works, the better. Otherwise, you run the risk of kind of sinking too much time, effort, having things move too slowly. Not saying that Architect Island is like that, but it just takes a longer time to get something in front of folks' eyes. And we know that the attention span of a lot of people in this space, just because of the sheer amount and volume of things happening, is quite low. So I feel like we really fit and hit that sweet spot of constantly giving people like new inspo, doing things quick on the fly, and seeing what works, what doesn't, and we respond accordingly. But we really hit our stride, I think, over the past half year. Honestly, since doubling down into Hyperfi and using that as like a proper home base.
Man, it feels like we're really an anomaly, I think, in general. And again, just thinking of like different collaborations and everything, and I'm like, dude, I think we've hit a great stride, like you're saying, and I also think a lot of people really believe in what we're doing, and genuinely want to contribute or help out in some way to see if we can push this thing into orbit or build this, in the way that, in whatever way we're doing and direction we're doing. And, think of someone like, Brooke Hawk, sort of just on his own, spun up this, donation banner that's like, easily seeable for everybody to, who wants to like potentially contribute, like in world and everything. And I feel like everyone's interested in what we're doing, and it really truly is like a collaborative, like community project. Like it couldn't be what it is without everybody pitching in, and everybody pitching in makes it what it is. And I'm like, dude, I can't think of anything like that out there, especially with like no promise of like monetary return. And talking about like dollars and cents, man, I really do feel like the whip has like a ton of potential for us and the crew to make money in a way that we all feel good about if we just continue to chip away at this thing and keep adding and everything. But it's really just like a fascinating like social experiment that is just constantly evolving and growing. And I don't know, man, it's just really interesting to see, especially recently, like we've both been saying, like how it's just sort of organically growing and manifesting itself in like different ways. It's awesome, man. It's fascinating.
By the community, for the community, people vibe with that. It's it at the end of the day. And the fact that we're able to use like the crypto rails means that money is always there. Like if we wanted to focus on that, we can focus on it. We can get things spun up there. But you don't need to focus on like a coin or money first in this space. Normally doing that results in like a stillborn product that it may stick around for a while just because vested interests, but won't actually be fundamentally fun or interesting. There's multiple ways to do everything, and this way of ours just it's been right for like our personal situations, but also it feels right in terms of vibes, and the community is obviously responding, and it's cool. We have this digital destination every week, and it's awesome to keep going back to. And speaking of that, Cameron has a new project that he's been building out on the side, which I found pretty interesting. Again, like it's not a speculative play, but it is designed to try to get folks to keep coming back and create a digital destination out of habit, like a ritual daily, things like that, that we've been experimenting with. It's called Streak Points. So if you go to streakpoints.com, it's literally like you just sign a message and you check in every day and you get fake internet monies that we'll eventually be able to use, like, for example, to post shit on the site, creating like a circular economy or something like that, sort of inspired by The Man Who Stole the World, that metaverse that we jumped into like a month or so ago, where they have this token that people are just using it to do things in the game, and every time they use it, it goes back into the game to people that are running around that metaverse. So excited for folks to do things that don't have like that financial first aspect to it, but leverage crypto in an interesting way to create new habits and create new kind of digital destinations.
It's interesting. Oh, dude, I'm such a sucker for like things that are like low effort and you check in like once a day to possibly earn like fake internet money. So yeah, man, I'll be checking that one out. Dude, I feel like there has been like a shift, I think, in Web3 in general. I think realizing that communities are very difficult to maintain, and especially like during a lot of these cycles, and even during like a lot of these projects that are cool and start out hot and everything. Once that like, initial burst sort of subsides, or like the big release happens, how to maintain an engaged community that stays involved because they genuinely are interested or want to be involved, without having to continuously like financially incentivize them and everything. And 01 has done a pretty good job of like establishing that. I feel like Marble Cards, man, is I feel like really has been doing it for longer than the Whip, and maybe one of the only ones out there that's been really having like a pretty organic community that genuinely enjoys like engaging with the product and everything. And I mean, those aren't the only examples, but I guess I'm saying that to say like I feel like we've stumbled upon like some recipe with the Whip that like really works in that way for our specific thing, where we've got a community who genuinely likes what we do and wants to be there and doesn't get bored really. And I think part of it is because I don't either, and you don't either. I think if we were bored, it would translate, and it wouldn't be exciting for us either. But it's I don't know, man. It's an interesting thing that I feel like a lot of projects, especially within tech in general, like sort of are put things out there and hope that the coolness of the tech will be enough to float the product or the idea or whatever. And certainly sometimes that does happen, but it's a tough or a tough nut to crack for people who are just trying to get attention and people interested in their thing and keep that going without a plan in place.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the issues people have with community is just like it's an amorphous concept that everyone says, but no one really defines. Like to me, community, like at its roots, is sort of like an emotional home or emotional shelter where folks can go and kind of vibe out. I layer in and say that it's something where any group or collective that has like the shared infinite game, they can just kind of align around and kind of hang out and focus on together. And that togetherness is pretty key. And then like from there, it's like, okay, so if we think it's like some sort of emotional home or shelter or place to hang out together, then what? Like how do you maintain or keep it? And too often people are just like, in crypto in particular, it's like, oh, what's the number of whatever the thing that we've all collected at? And then if it's just focused on the money, like we all know what happens when price goes down, like community goes to black or goes to zero too. So if that's it, if that's all you're focused on, like you're wrecked from the beginning. But if you're focusing on the actual kind of togetherness, on the vibes, then it's really boils down to like, are you communicating consistently at whatever cadence it's natural to you? Like the 3 C's, I like to call it. And having that balance of communication consistently at whatever pace of regularity that fits with you, that's how you're able to kind of keep community, real community, alive over a longer time period in a manageable, sustainable way. Versus, are we all here because we want this like pet rock of ours to increase in value forever and ever? Like, obviously, that's not sustainable. So it's really about perspective, and it's how people define it for themselves and actually trying to define community and then making sure that they're able to support it over a long period of time. Because honestly, communities, digital communities in particular, could be around forever if people take the measures to make that possible. And we're seeing some of that happen. I think the Whip is a great example. But like you're saying, Marble is a good example. Honestly, the Punks Discord is an awesome example. Mm-hmm. It goes back to when they were all free and trading for pennies, and people were they joined that community for the love of collecting and for what punks represented for digital collectibles / art, blah 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 blah. So there's definitely more examples out there, but true authentic communities with true community leaders, few and far between. Shout out to Jiho and Axie. That's another fucking amazing community leader and community period.
Yeah, dude. I as the years go on, my respect for Jiho continues to increase the way he's like, just managed that project and his resiliency and stick-to-itiveness, and it's no small task. I was thinking about that recently about like how we're inevitably eventually going to see like a lot more gaming concepts come into Web3, and we already are. But I'm like, dude, Axie is like so what they've done for years now. They've just got so much experience and are so far out in front of anything else. With the progress that they've made and the mistakes that they've made and rebounding from those mistakes and experiments with like tokenomics. And I'm like, dude, it's like, what they're doing over there and have done is just so far, so progressive and so far out in front of like, really most other projects out there. There are other projects out there. Avagachi comes to mind, which is not the same thing, but like similar types of like, stick-to-itiveness, great community, that kind of thing. But dude, just circling back to what you were saying, man, about the Punks Discord, and I feel like we've come back to this a few times too, man. When you strip the money out of all of this, that makes a big difference. And I feel like the infinite game in crypto inherently for like everybody was money, right? Like that was. Especially like before NFTs, there were people in it for like idealistic reasons, and you could find like little bastions and enclaves of those people talking about that kind of stuff. But like for the most part, man, like people were in it for money, and when the speculative bubble came into NFTs, like that was the infinite game for like everybody coming in. They're trying to make the infinite money and stoke the community fire to try and play that infinite game. But then it's like you said, man, once you sort of remove that from the scenario, or the price bottoms out, if that's the infinite game, there's nothing much left. And it definitely feels like that these communities that were built without that being an inherent part of it, have that long lasting ability. And I think NFTs in general, like, were, at least in my opinion, one of the beginnings of like real communities being formed within the context of crypto that were playing a different infinite game. And I think a lot of people still haven't realized that. If I were from the outside, I would think the infinite game of crypto is money, and whether it's an NFT or like DeFi or like whatever, like that's the infinite game you're playing when you enter into this territory. And but in reality, well, I mean, that's a game, and not discouraging.
It's a one-player game. It's a total one-player game.
Yeah,
and it's times zero sum, blah blah blah, and it's so easy in crypto to earn crypto that like the excitement quickly fades, right? So then it's like, okay, well, what else is there? And there's a lot. It's like there could be like the learning angle, like what's new here? Like going back to Cent days, I feel like everyone there was aligned just for the novelty of the newness of the tech, and figuring out ways to use it and make use of it. And the kind of like educational learning angle is an interesting infinite game to pursue. It's always rich and you do it together. Collecting is another infinite game that has no end, that like crypto and the digital nature of collecting digital things unlocks like these kind of like multiplayer modes, right? Where you can do things together, which is really interesting, but also like what we're doing with the whip, like these meetups, coming together and talking about cool new shit, like taking it back to the old school of community meetups, but just in this kind of larger context. Like these are all not necessarily primarily financially focused things, but games that are themselves interesting, repeatable, exciting, and create value and like kind of emotional value in particular, but then can have like take advantage of all the money aspect that crypto provisions over and over. So it's cool. And I think we saw this back in the day in Cent. I forget exactly who said this, but it's like they came for the bounty, the money, the crypto, but then stayed for the community, because they realized that there is this bigger game to participate in, and that generated more fun over a longer period of time that just didn't really get old until things broke on the site.
Yes, I remember that. And I remember that mantra coming up a few times. I think I actually parroted it back in the day and sort of co-signing on that statement. So yes, I'm definitely one of those people who sort of like came in for that reason, and now y'all have been stuck with me forever. Dude, so I have this like concept that I've been rolling around in my head that I'm interested to hear your take on. So fuck it, let's do it live. So a few weeks ago or whatever, I had put out like a half serious call, like, someone should just give the whip like $1 million, right? Like watch us fly with like a little bit of funding to do our thing and everything. And I've thought about that like a couple times since then. I'm like, dude, what if like that just happened? And maybe it wouldn't be in that way, but I'm like, I feel like we keep doing our thing. Maybe the whip isn't too far off from being able to make some money and be a source of revenue for the people who are putting time into it and everything. And I would obviously love to see people who have been helping us out get paid and everything. But I'm like, but I think I also have like PTSD, honestly, in like some way, not trying to trivialize that, but just seeing like, how venture capitalists and investments and like giant cash infusions just like really fuck up like a lot of projects and honestly end up being more of like a curse than a blessing on a long-term spectrum. And I had this like panic that I'm like, oh my God, would like this actually like fuck up the whip in some way? Like is part of like the magic actually that there isn't that concern or worry or burden of like having to chase money, find money, pay people. And does introducing $1 million to the whip actually sort of like take away from some of the magic that we've been building sort of like grassroots and organically? Or does that like, sort of allow us to, do our thing just on a bigger scale? And I don't know, it's probably down to how you manage it and who it comes from and what you accept and like blah, 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 blah. But I don't know, man. I just sort of curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that like money doesn't change people; it just makes them more who they are, right? And I mean, you've been in the space for a while. I've been in the space for a minute. Had some incredibly good fortune, things collecting, like investing in the space. I think I'm the same person, just you know what I mean? I think you're the same person.
Yeah.
And I think the whip would be the same. It would just be, we'd probably do more whip shit, honestly, is probably what would be unlocked there. But I wouldn't see the character of us or anyone in the whip crew in particular changing dramatically. And other members of the whip crew, like Paradox, dude. I know he's had quite a good run building out like a new wing of the house, blah, 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 right? So I think the whole crew is super solid in that front. And like more money for the whip just means more magic for the whip, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. But also I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, dude, I feel like it's also, a lot of money in this space comes with like a lot of strings attached to. And I think the whip has done a pretty good job of like maintaining its integrity and, would in those types of situations and everything. So, but it is, go ahead.
I think that's a huge point. Certain money in particular coming from certain folks for certain purposes definitely comes with certain strings attached to it. And I mean, through my experience, like for example at Cent, and seeing what happens with like when VCs are involved and things like that, and like there is a very tangible, I mean obviously it makes sense, influence that they exert. And depending on certain periods in time where that money comes in, like it really, really can dramatically alter the course of projects or people's trajectory heading forward. So making sure that we stay away from shit like that. I think both of you and I, we've been very, very cognizant of that fact. I think it's really important to flag because it's important to have sustainability and have money to do certain things for sure. And for certain projects, it makes sense. And if you don't have that money, it's just like you can't pursue it. People have families and lives and things like that and other things they need to depend on. Like the money really oftentimes is important, but it will also come with strings in certain situations. So I think that's like a huge point to make, especially people that want to do things in the space and may think that the only way to do that is like VC, getting investment, blah, blah, blah. Just be very careful where you're getting that from if you're going to go that route. Flagging that.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think I can confidently like keep my call for $1 million for the whip out there, but with just like maybe an asterisk, like also must have no strings attached. Type of thing. I mean, I seriously though, like I don't know what the business model would be for the whip, right? Like, and I think everybody is still like figuring out if or what or if we need one or whatever. But I'm like, if a VC were to even come to us and be like, here's $1 million, do whatever you want with it, but we want to recoup our investment. I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. Like, we just do the whip, man. Like, how about you just give it to us with no strings attached and let us do our thing, type of thing. And there are probably like creative ways or whatever, but I'm really not. I feel like it wouldn't be worth it, man. To have like uh, and I feel like part of our magic is not having to answer to anybody or have any strings attached. And even if like Coca-Cola were to come to us and be like, here's $1 million, no strings attached, we just want you to hang a big Coca-Cola banner like above your stage, I think people would show up and be like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm too like
I would totally do that. I mean, if that's it, like, fuck yeah. Like, let's have a spinny Coca-Cola thing. I'll even do like Coke Zero. I don't care. If there's literally no strings attached on that front. But I mean, that sort of, I don't know, like advertising the right way. Like, there's a million ways to kind of, if we were really, really serious about it, we could think of that would not detract from what we're trying to do in terms of like having fun and making sure other folks have fun week in, week out, event in, event out. But I don't know, like, dude, are you kidding me? Coke's like, yo, here's $1 million. Just put like a spinny Coke logo in Hyperfy. That's it. Nothing else in writing. You got to do that. Are you kidding me?
Dude, as ridiculous as it sounds, man, I feel like that would like eat a little piece of my soul to like see that fucking thing in there every week, coming in there and everything. I was joking, man. I'm like, Pepsi already like took NFT land and made a whole exhibit out of it. Might as well go with Pepsi. Like, they already got one foot in the door. I don't know, man. I would love to have this problem to have to discuss. Like, if this is if these are the situations that we have to run into, or like, oh shit, do we like accept this mill or not, or like, this is a problem I'm willing to have. So, but would prefer for it to come from like, something better. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about, man. A lot of seeing all these projects that have taken money from various places and how it's changed them, some for good, some for better, some like a lateral change just to keep the lights on and everything. But we've talked about it before, just the role of money in the space, particularly within like the NFT scene, I feel like is really interesting because all of these projects are so different than like the traditional crypto investment projects that I think people are used to. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how it evolves, man. I feel like we talked about it like a long time ago when NFTs were like just sort of becoming a thing, about this being sort of like a different animal than crypto in general, and will sort of be its own like thing, under that umbrella, but still like its own thing. And I think we're still sort of seeing like the evolution of that.
Yeah. And I mean, oftentimes money comes with like some message that people want to propagate or promulgate, whatever. I think there's folks in crypto that have messages that like we would vibe with, for example. And then to your point, like, I don't know what message Coke would want to send out that would really vibe with us. I mean, what does Coke even mean or represent anyway? Just fucking soda or sugar water. With cocaine.
They would probably want to sell their dumb NFTs,
Yeah. It just comes down to alignment, comes down to like message and honestly vibes. I think there's still too much focus on like external folks when it comes to money. Like, money needs to come from the outside, but there's so much money within crypto. It's just finding the right people that are aligned, the right messaging, and that want their message to go further and wider or something. Like, my mind goes to folks like token angels, right? And folks like moderates, who knows who they are, where they are, whatever. But they sort of have that same kind of like, fuck it, let's do cool shit, bring cool people together. Token angels has that punk documentary that they help produce and shit like that. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. And that's like where money spent and money like parked makes sense for the space, that aligns with what we've been doing and what we've seen people kind of resonate with. So anyway, TLDR, give us $1 million and we'll vibe out with your message as long as we vibe with it.
Yeah. Asterisks. Let us do whatever we want. Asterisks. Don't look for a return on investment. Quick question, man. Just out of curiosity, if given VC money coming out of the sky from any big brand we could choose from, like, are there any that come to mind that you feel like would be a good fit, like with our vibe and everything? Because I feel like, and I think one of the reasons I use Coca-Cola as an example is I feel like we've always had this sort of like, punk rock, like alternative, like we're like the cool dive bar where like, not everybody knows about, but a lot of dope people hang out there kind of thing going on. And so I'm like, Coca-Cola sort of represents like the opposite end of the spectrum for me in that context. Although, if they're going to throw millions of dollars at us, we can have the conversation about spinning Coke can. But however, are there any like big brands out there that come to mind for you that you're like, oh, that would actually like, dovetail reasonably well and could feel pretty good about accepting $1 million from them?
As it relates to the whip, no, I feel like we need to align ourselves with people in the trenches with us that are building things from the ground up. That feels more, I mean, again, like with our name too, that feels more aligned. If there's like a crazy experimental arm of big brands that have like a different name from the big brands, that feels like it could align with us. But that's a total hypothetical. I don't know of any real examples like that. Yeah, off the top of the dome. How about you?
Yeah. No, I really don't know, man. I'm like, I wonder if at some point there's like a video game company play or, something that's already like slightly involved in the whip, a computer company that, has products that are relevant to, our user base or, some as like, VR, AR, metaverse platforms in general become more fleshed out, like stuff that has to do with them inherently. And I think for the most part, that's generally not like a major overlap right now, but I feel like it becomes one at some point. And so, I don't know, man, I'm just sort of thinking out loud. But
NVIDIA for sure.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Let's channel some, man.
That's a good fucking question, to be honest.
What's that?
That's a good question. I'm sure there are. I hadn't even thought about games. I'm not. I mean, we're in like an infinite video game, so I tend not to play that many games these days. And the only games I ever played really were like Battlefield, and I guess I mean, we had guns and The Man Who Stole the World, Metaverse, so it's sort of aligned.
I think the lines start to blur though between like metaverse and video games a little bit, right? I think there ends up being a lot of overlap in the middle, while there still be like sort of like a Venn diagram. And I don't play a lot of video games at this point either, because I'm playing the Infinite one with you. But I do see that potentially being some sort of overlap that also makes sense to our audience and everything. I don't know, man. It'd be really dope if this episode just, channeled up like a whole bunch of like, giant investments for us to sift through and see what we want. Who's out there? Like Activision. I don't even know who makes video games anymore. Is Konami still out there? Get Nintendo up in here.
I guess Roblox is there too, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone give us money with no strings attached. We'll figure something out cool.
Yeah. Like you got my mind. Like, who actually would be like a big good fit? Anyway,
I think they're out there. We're historically bad at this, but if we put our heads together, there's probably some out there that actually, we could make a case for it to make sense. Anyway, man, conversation for another day. We gotta mow people down at this parade, and I gotta drop some vehicles in there before Jin gets mad at me for Thursday.
There we go. No, I'm excited for tomorrow, man. All right, well, I'll let you get back to preparing to move people down in the parade tomorrow. The whip's given. Stoked for that. Awesome chat. Great questions too, dude. Got my mind racing.
Always fun, man. I enjoy picking your brain. Where our brains think differently, but are generally very aligned. So it's always fun.
Same here, dude. All right, bro.
Later, man.
Peace. Later, y'all. Later Dragonite, later Trizlet, later Dragonite's mom. See y'all in the metaverse tomorrow.